Tigercast is back, ladies and gentlemen. It's not even round 2 yet. We don't even know. Well, June 11's round 2, but we're going to get in real early because there's lots to talk about. And the boys have been itching to get back on and rip into a few people, so we won't hold back tonight. Captain Blood17, welcome back to the show, mate.
Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say. How are we all?
Yeah, going well, thanks yourself.
Yeah, good, thank you. Good.
And as always, we've got Tiger71 alongside you. How are you, mate?
I'm good, guys. I hope everyone's well. I'm now paranoid to cough. How's that? Yeah. No, COVID. Us smokers are all freaking paranoid. But yeah, but I'm well, and I hope everyone else is well.
So speaking of the COVID, it's been, almost 8 weeks since we've had a podcast. What have you guys been up to in the downtime?
I'll go. In all honesty, mate, just been... Actually, this has been a very, very good little period of time for catching up on documentaries and TV shows that I've wanted to watch and haven't been able to. So if you're out there, I recommend the following on Netflix. If you haven't seen The Last Dance, please watch it.
All over it. Watching the final 2 tomorrow.
Yep. If
What's
you
it called?
Sundal,
The Last Dance.
Yep.
Is that like a chick flick?
No.
It's a sports doco. I'm not going to tell you what it's about.
No, that's the Michael Jordan one, is it?
Yeah.
I've seen it. I saw it.
Yep. So there's that one. Sundal Until I Die.
I've heard that's good.
Brilliant. Yep, absolutely brilliant. Because there's themes in all these documentaries that you can relate to as a sports lover, right? And the sleeper that I've just discovered is Drive to Survive, which is based on the Formula One seasons. And you want pressure, like sporting pressure. My God, you should see what goes on in behind the scenes in F1 and the rivalries with the drivers and that. It's behind the scenes, all access, and it is no holds barred. And they are 3 brilliant documentaries to get you through until the football season starts. So docos and smashing it out in the gym. That's all I've been doing and working.
Have you gotten into the Tiger King series?
No, you know what? My wife did, but I sort of saw some negative press about it, and I thought, you know what, there's other things I sort of want to watch before that, if that makes sense. But I know that the drama's around it, but I just thought there's other things I'd prefer to watch.
It's a train crash. It's one of those ones you can't look away. Like, my Facebook feed was just filled with it, and I had no idea what it was. They're like, we'll see what it's about. And after the first 2 episodes, like, what the hell are we watching? But you just can't not stop watching it. It's one of those weird ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't watched it. No, I haven't watched it. I have been getting into this, if we talk on Netflix, The Last Kingdom. That is fucking epic. If you have not seen it, it's about this this sack. The Last Kingdom set in when England was like 4 kingdoms and the Vikings were raiding. So you've got Uhtred, who's the main character of the series. I don't want to spoil it, but it's epic. If you like action and drama and just good quality viewing. It goes to 4 seasons now, I think. It's brilliant. It's right up there with Vikings, in my opinion, which I think Vikings was a legendary epic, but it's right up there in quality. And
I know our Tigers, we've got a few music lovers in there. Do yourself a favour on SBS while you got the chance to watch it. There's a 4-part doco called Punk, and Iggy Pop's produced it, and it goes through the history of punk. And let me tell you, I just watched episode 4 tonight, and it is brilliant. So there's one for the music lovers. Get on board Punk. It's magnificent. Done.
Yeah, well, punk's never been my thing. What else have we been on other than Netflix? Homeschooling. So all the parents out there, how bad is it? That's been doing my head in. But also been just enjoying the downtime with the family. Like my wife, for those that don't know, does emergency transport. So she's had some of her shifts reduced because of all this that's going around because elective surgeries have been stopped. So we've just really just enjoyed it as a bit of I don't want to say holiday because it's at the end of the day it's forced and you can't go anywhere, but we've made the best of it and it's been pretty good actually. I just can't wait till June when I'm starting back up with work, like I'm sure everyone else. But till then, I'm just trying to make the best of a bad situation. And I've also, to be honest, I've been watching every replay of every game of last year, particularly with the Carlton games when I want to watch comedies. Right, we'll talk about more round 1 this year, but round 1 last year, and just it's just brilliant. It's just brilliant just watching all the garlic sauce ferals start to get all this hope, and there's no real hope to be had. So that's how I've entertained myself.
And have you been missing footy?
Can I just say one thing? I just want to put it out there, and I'm sure you boys will agree. The fact that the reason we love our club so much, and for some of us older blokes that went through 1989 and 1990 with the Save Our Skin campaign, can I just say to every one of you 97,000 members, I could kiss every one of you. Seriously, it's what makes our club the best club in the land. We just back up every year, and I love you guys, and thank you so much to everyone who's doing their bit for the club. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
No, I agree too.
You see a lot of bitching and moaning from supporters from other clubs on Facebook about all kinds of things, but no, the Tiger Army always sticks strong. So as much as we'd all love to be there on June 11 or whatever date our next game drops, we'll no doubt all be supporting madly through our TV. But speaking of the footy, have you guys missed it? I know there's been that long between games that a few people have kind of just not gotten over the fact that the season's stalled, but just haven't had lost that kind of spark for it.
Oh, look, with me, it's been funny this year. Like I'll watch and be emotionally invested in any Richmond game, right? It's history of the jumper and all that sort of stuff. But watching the round one game, I like the fact, what's unique about our sport, it's tribal. Like people talk about soccer and NFL and all that being tribal, but it's not as tribal as, being at the G or being at a ground and you got teams there with 100-plus year histories that my dad hated your dad because you followed the Blues and I followed the Tigers type of thing, that type of tribalism. And just having no crowds, I didn't realise, this is personal opinion only, just for me, but I didn't realise the impact of not having crowds. So when I was watching round one this year, and even though we were giving it to Carlton and, just playing with them, and I was enjoying that aspect of it, I couldn't get up for it. I couldn't. Normally I can get angry or get really, really happy, and it was just like, we scored our 5th goal in a row, yeah. And that's what the sort of feeling was.
It felt soulless.
Yeah, that's it. Good word, soulless. It was. And look, so am I looking forward to the game coming back? I am. I'm sad in a way because with the list being cut next year, I think it's going to be the last time we're going to see Hooley playing around. It's going to be the last time we'll probably see someone like McIntosh if he can probably get a couple of games but then be cut because we're forced to cut him, and a few other things. So in that aspect, I'm sort of not looking forward to the season because I don't want that, that to happen. But it's I don't know. We need crowds back. Even though I love my football, and no one that's listening to this podcast can say I don't love my footy, and it's not as feral as anyone else. But I'm seriously of the belief just wait till next year. Just run it next year. Hopefully crowds are back and there's no gimmicky rules and this caveat to put an asterisk on the competition. I like playing a game when it's an even playing field, even as we could possibly get the AFL. But now that there's hubs and fucking shortened extended breaks and all this rubbish, I've sort of lost the soul for it.
It must be absolutely necessary for the AFL to get this up and running. I mean, otherwise there's no other incentive, but there must be just that much negative effect if it doesn't go ahead that they have to do anything possible, I suppose. But it was weird, the no crowd aspect. There were stages where I forgot there was no crowd, but then there was other points in time where it was clearly obvious there was no crowd. But I was just happy to see us take the piss out of Carlton, to be honest, similar to what you said.
Can I just say, was anyone else shocked by the fact we had to borrow $650 million to keep the game afloat?
Seems a bit irresponsible, doesn't it, that they didn't have anything else there?
I couldn't understand it. Because what I couldn't understand, I'm with you, CB. Why do we need $650,000 if we've got the money coming in for the television rights? Yeah, they've got to stop, right? So, but we own Metricon. The clubs that you got Richmond, who could have gone a year without a blip, no games, and I think we're on record saying it wouldn't affect us. And I think there was 3 other clubs the same state as us.
Adelaide,
it sort of showed, It showed me what a dead weight the other clubs are, and I mean that. I try to mean that as nicely as I can. If they need $650 million, mainly to prop up the other clubs, like you got the Rabble, Carlton, they've lost Virgin now, I think, as a sponsor.
St Kilda's over $10 million in debt, mate, before this pandemic,
and they're talking that they're going to come back stronger than ever with the virus, and they're saying that because they don't have to pay any of the bills. AFL's paying it now. We have to pay it. with this loan that they're taking it out. It sort of really surprised me. I thought the AFL had enough of a war chest and clubs could have survived the 8 weeks. Because look, we've only been closed, 4 months at the longest, 8 weeks, 9 weeks. So why do you need 650 million?
Yeah, there's something's amiss in their numbers. That's what I feel anyway. But I would just say this too. So we know we're going to have probably no crowds for most of the year, possibly all the year. If you have the opportunity and if it starts back up, please go support your grassroots local footy club, please. They need the cash. If they get the seasons up and going, there's every chance, canteens may not be running, or there could be a whole bunch of things. So they're going to need their money. If you've got a local footy club and you love it, now would be a good time to inquire. And just, if you might stick $50, so, who knows? Give them something, keep your grassroots footy club going, and maybe that's the game of footy you do get to attend and watch, the back end of the year. So that's the other thing I would put out there.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that are going to really struggle the most because, obviously player payments is such a big thing for local footy, and that's relying upon sponsors and bar fees and memberships and canteen, all that kind of stuff. And I think it was the president of one of the clubs in the EFL or EDFL, one of the two, come out and say that he reckons it's a really bad idea for those local comps to start up because they're going to make no money and go bankrupt unless their players play for no money. And I think there'd be a handful of the local boys who would, but the ones they've enticed across from other clubs or former VFL, AFL players, etc., I can't see them not playing for money, unfortunately. I feel like the only sort of league that might be able to safely get away is the VAFA because they don't have player payments. Yeah,
well, I can tell you down in bush footy down here, it's got to put clubs to the wall. It's meant to be an amateur sport where people don't get paid, but I tell you now, there's some big coin out in local footy.
Oh, shit.
And if they can't get those canteens and those gate receipts and the bar sales and stuff, they're stuffed. And they're big clubs too. Not little pissy clubs. I'm talking in the Gippsland Footy League. So there's a whole bunch of stuff to play out yet. So that's another watch this space. If you guys are keen for your local footy, get involved and find out what's going on in your local town.
Absolutely, and it just comes back to you got to just support all those small businesses. Like all these big giant ones will probably get through it, but small businesses, small clubs, all that kind of stuff. When the time arises and we can do so, make sure we get behind one another.
Yeah, agree.
All right, well, it's been a long time since round 1 versus Carlton, but I feel the need to back over it because there's nothing like sort of talking about how shit Carlton are and how good we are, and this game reflects that pretty strongly, I feel. So, Richmond 16-9, 105 defeated Carlton 12-9, 81, 24 points, but let's be honest, it probably felt like about 50. I mean, during the third quarter, we got out to 50, and then we took the foot off, and the funny part about that game was before the season started, when they changed the quarter lengths to 16 minutes, everyone's like, Richmond are going to struggle now because they take, the full 30 minutes of a quarter to grind teams into the ground. And quarter 1, we've just gone bang, 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 7 goals to 2, see you later.
Yeah, it was exactly how I predicted. If you remember, I know we didn't win by 162 points, but we're well on the way. If you had doubled our 16 minutes, if they had increased the normal quarter sizes, we would have won that by that margin. But yeah, like you said, we up to 50 points third quarter, and we just went, preservation mode, just protect the kids. I liked how Baker had a very good game. It looked like he if you remembered my critique on him before the game, that even though last year he played all the way through to the grand final, his one weakness to me was that when he was under pressure, he would do that hack kick. And just blast it out. That was causing a lot of turnovers or repeat inside 50s against us. He's looked like he's fixed it. It looks like instead of just swinging the ball or his leg around his body to kick it wherever he thinks it's going to go, he's now actually taking that breath, stepping back, and then trying to actually hit a target or hit a target in space. So that was really, really good. Castagna, I rate the kid. He's just got to get his accuracy right. But he kicked 3 goals, which is good. But I really felt for him in the grand final, even though I was completely drunk by the end of it. When I watched the replay, he would have won the Norm Smith. He would have kicked 5 goals as a small forward.
He would have.
And he missed one out.
Yeah, he wins it. 100%.
And he missed 2 on the full. So, and he gave a few off. So he's that chaos instigator, and he showed that even against the Blues didn't have a matchup for him. Bolton, like I said, I rate him. He's our next Edwards. So yeah, look. Kids-wise, we're really, really good. I reckon Caddy and the like, we'll get better, obviously, as the season goes through. Same thing with Dusty. But, yeah, we just we blew them away when we needed to. We absorbed what we wanted to, and when they came back a little bit in the second quarter, we then went bang, 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 bang again in the third, put us at the 50, and then we said, okay, we can still take a punch. We can still retaliate really quick. We've done what we needed to do. Carlton's a minnow side, so don't worry about pushing anymore. We've won this, and that's how the game played out. So
I think I tweeted at halftime that if I'm Liam Jones, I'd be putting myself in self-isolation at this point in time. Rewalt, just tore him a new one.
But the Carlton supporters, sorry, Steve, I'll shut up after this point. But the Carlton supporters after the game, walking with their head wobble. And I said to my mates, mate, obviously I'm not at the game, so I get the text inadvertently come through. And I've just said, listen, you're celebrating a 24-point loss. Pull your head in the oven. Seriously, put your head in the oven. You're celebrating a 24-point loss, and that's going to give a redeeming. This is how the Carlton psychosis is, If they can't cheat or brown paper bag it, they celebrate the mediocrity, the losses, So it's like, that's why their sponsors are even leaving them, like Virgin and shit. They just need to get a sponsor that fixes their club, someone that shows that type of sponsor shows who the Carlton Football Club is. And that's why I know from what I'm hearing with my sources, Cash Converters, mate. Cash Converters is going to be the number one sponsor for Carlton. Anyway, I'll start you, CB. You go, mate.
You guys are being a bit naive. I would like to applaud Carlton because at the time when this game got played, COVID-19 was just breaking, yeah?
Yeah.
It was, yeah.
So I'd like to applaud Carlton because for the first three quarters, they really exercised social distancing really well. They were 1.5 metres from their opponents.
They were.
So, kudos to you, Carlton. You showed the way for society by being nowhere near your opponents. So, well done on that, guys.
And
I just thought, look, but once again, my one bugbear, and I sound like I'm paranoid and I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. How is it every time we play Carlton, 70% of their goals are from the umpires?
Yeah, and see, I love you, CB. I love you saying that, mate, because that's why the crowd is so important. Like, I'm booing, right, the TV, right? Sweet, I'm booing it. But there's no background noise, and I'm thinking, fuck, that's normally your validation. If you're watching on the TV, my wife and kids are looking at me like I'm a loon. But yeah, exactly that. And didn't they get it right? Didn't they bloody get it right?
But I'll just say this. Look, I thought that, it was overall satisfactory, but I actually think possibly because of where we were with our pre-season and how we were prepared our pre-season tigs, I think we probably ran out of gas a little bit towards the end because you've got to remember, Richmond played the long game. So the way we train and the way we target our season and our pre-season is all about the back end of the year. And I think, a team like Carlton, they're all pumped up, ready to go from round one. They're full bore. So I think we probably ran out of gas a little bit towards the end. I think Lynch looked like he just looked a touch rusty. And same with the state game, he's just a touch off with his timing and his jumping. But, he starts clunking a few of them. He could have been like Rewalt. He could have ripped the game apart in the second half if he just clunked a few. But obviously we know he's a quality player. So even though it was a good win, I think there's plenty of scope for improvement on the rest of the season.
Oh, yeah, we've got the depth. Like, when we, our big, like, Rewalt still kicked 3, which is great, but all we need is Lynch. If our Cuss can't wait, which is going to happen, it's going to happen more consistency this year than last year, I reckon, towards the end. When we both got Lynch and Rewalt both kicking 3 or 4 goals in a game, each of them. When that happens, our scoring's going to go through the roof, and it's going to even help our other smalls. But I really love the ability. Our backline looks super offensive. It really looked deadly to me. A lot of our scores were generated from the back half, and we normally get that run. But the attacking mindset of your Bakers, your Grimes, your Vlostons, your Hawleys looked like it was on an extra level. So I'm interested to see how that goes for the rest of the year.
Is anyone with Vloston? Is there anyone else concerned? He's had 2 concussions in 3 hitouts. He got knocked out against the Pies, and then he had an innocuous knock against Carlton and went off as well. Didn't partake in the second half of the game. Is that something you should be worried about? Yeah,
look, you said that also before the post game. That's why I did something, man. I did it for Vloston, mate. I'm the one that started the coronavirus. Just so he could get 8 weeks, of complete rest. And he's done that, you know what I mean? So I did that without a love for you, Vloston. Just love, mate. So I was coughing and spluttering, and it was probably the shitting in the Geelong ground that probably started it, fermented it. But who knows? But you're right. But at the end of the day, his concussion will be over now. He's had 8 weeks, 9 weeks of no training, no contact, which is going to be a funny dynamic for the rest of the season. You've got players who are injured that have now have had that time to get themselves right. You know what I mean? So still sucks to be Carlton because not Casbolt. What's that other hack that they got? Curnow. His knees are still fucked, and I think that other one, that other tour that they've got. What's his name?
Yeah, Cruiser went down.
No, but what's that other one that they reckon is a fuckamus? No,
Harry Mackay.
Not Fatty. Yeah, Mackay. Yeah, hopefully he gets to play if they can find his heart. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, no, there's other players that are going to come back. Nick Nat's going to be better for the rest, I reckon. Yeah. Get more training into him. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Can we talk about Stevens from Geelong?
Only,
that for later?
I was going to say only talk about what's been reported. Just don't speculate or.
No, I wouldn't do that. No, I wish him all the best. Yeah, but it sort of highlights the risk, and also how I don't want to sound gloating here, which is going to come off. I can't help it. And Geelong supporters, I don't care about them anyway, but they're going to have a bit of a cry. But it shows how professionally run Richmond is now. When we can take a look at high risk talent and go, okay, we're going to make a decision on Stack. We're going to make a decision on Marlon Pickett with all their problems that they've had, right? And we get it right. When any man and his dog could tell you Stevens had issues, that is well documented prior to going to Geelong. And I wish him all the best, and I hope he gets on the footy field, and I'm sure he will. But his issues seem to be a lot more, from what he was saying last year. I'm being really clear on this, Mick, so don't worry. He was on SEN, I think, and he said footy is his last in his mind, last in his priority.
We're starting to hear that more and more now from players, aren't we?
Yeah, but I still think he's in that mindset. You know what I mean? And I'm hoping the forced break hasn't kept him there. In that mindset where football's really, not even secondary. And Geelong, though they didn't have to pay much for him, they're still paying a fair bit of salary cap for him and a lift spot, and they've committed time to him. Hopefully it works out, but it just highlights to me how, professionally run our players are. I mean, our club is in picking the right type of talent with the right risks.
Speaking of the impact of the 8 weeks off, it actually just triggered a comment that Jack Rewalt made a little while ago that if this keeps dragging on, that he's going to be checked out virtually of the season because there's been that much downtime between when they were training and geared up to play round 1 to when they're going to start up again. Do you think it's going to have an impact on some of the older guys like Jack, who have obviously become new parents? They've got other priorities in their life now, and this has dragged on a little bit to get back up and running? Or do you reckon are they at that level where they can just click back in and go, nah, good to go?
Not now, because they don't have to go into the hubs. So he's had the time with his kid, and I think now, I think if we were heading into hubs, that would have put a different psychological impact on some of the players. But now they don't have the hubs, the Victorian guys. I think that will have a different outcome for those guys. That's my take on it.
That's fair call. I think that was the key, wasn't it? The hubs. That was a big issue, and I firmly believe if they went with the hubs, that a lot of our guys would have pulled out.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Look, people talk about they're highly paid, so they should just suck it up. Yeah, fair enough. But at the end of the day, they're not military soldiers. They haven't signed up for that. They're like you and I, just they get paid very well. So if you were asked to go somewhere and your family cannot see you, your kids cannot see you or even intermingle with you, and it could be how they originally were discussing it, 12 weeks, 16 weeks, that's just too much to ask. And then people, when they look like they might even be able to bring some of their kids in, their families with them, well, you still got the families that got kids that are stuck in a room. They can't go anywhere. That's not fair on them either. So, I'm glad it's not happening.
Yep.
So the only real changes that we've seen of large effect is the WA clubs are being based out of Gold Coast because of their own state laws, which is their own, what they want to do is what they want to do. Do you think that's been a reasonable enough outcome?
I think it's the only thing you could do. I mean, there's the logic. I can't go too deep into this. You know that.
I know. When I said, I thought, I don't want him to.
but okay, so you can't. for those Nimrod Western Australian, South Australian listeners, right, all three of us, right, listen to this Tigercast, it's easier to relocate 4 teams from South Australia and Western Australia and put them into a hub as opposed to relocating 10 clubs, which is over half the competition. That's what it comes down to. And the league has borrowed $650 million. So guess what? We're going to take the easier option, yeah? Just common sense. Common sense dictates that. Yeah,
you're spot on. And having the WA Premier, reckon we're soft. Like, you can tell he's not very educated because that's exactly the same. That's the right rationale. You can't expect 10 teams that are going to cost 10 times the cost to relocate them compared to 4. So, just deal with it, really. And they'll be fine. Like, really, in Brisbane, they're playing Brisbane, which in Brisbane they've won before. Gold Coast is an easy win. They've got is Adelaide and Port Adelaide also going to Queensland?
I'm not too sure. I think
they are, aren't they? It's Port Adelaide, and then you've got the two Queensland teams, and then you've got Fremantle and West Coast.
Yeah.
They're all in one hub, right? So really West Coast should be going, they should beat all of those sides twice. Now they don't have to travel.
So here's my point, right, guys? So they're complaining about the hubs going up there now. Do these dickheads realise that they're probably going to get a Richmond-type run of having all these home games at the back end of the season in Perth?
That's right.
Have they actually contemplated, are they that thick that they can't work that out, that they actually get a benefit at the end of the year?
See, I would have loved for Richmond to go up to Queensland because we win in that ground. We play that ground extremely well, and then watch them all cry when we have 9 games in a row against the other sides. You guys can hear me?
Yeah.
I can hear. Yep.
Yeah. So
no, you're right. We could have gone up to the Gabbatoir and just tore teams apart.
Yeah, exactly. So. I reckon it all balance out. Look, but that's again what I said at the start. This year doesn't sit right with me, even if we win it. Like, probably when we win it, I wouldn't give a shit. But I don't know. It's just a weird season for me. I just got to get used to it. I reckon after a couple of games and I get in the flow, hopefully I'm like you, Mick, I can forget the crowd's not there.
So we're looking at, 17 games. We play everyone once. I feel like that's an advantage for us because we were going to obviously be given the tougher draw playing the other top 4 teams twice. With our game style, though, this year's going to be survival of the fittest, essentially. Are we advantaged, do you think, as a team, or disadvantaged with how we play based on a 17-game season?
Advantaged like you wouldn't believe. Other teams know it too. They know we're advantaged. The reason is that because we're a system-based side, all of our 25 that we've had that are training at the moment have all played for the last 3 years together. So our list is not – our starting 22 hasn't changed overly much. And the few that got put in last year, we've got their replacements sitting in the wing that were pushed out, that can slot right back in, that have also had a year and a half of it. So, we're going to be – injuries permitting, we won't drop a beat. My only concern is the size of the quarters. We play Carlton, but they're a rabble. They're not really any competition. Collingwood, we'll see how that goes. They're very similar to us. I think how many sides can go full-blown attack, having full confidence of their back line absorbing the turnover? Not many. I reckon we can.
Well, here's the thing. People talk about, because everyone's trying to, obviously the AFL media have to write something. And, it's easy to pick on the big dogs because, they got the bigger clickbait, I guess, bigger audiences. But I don't see how any of this disadvantages Richmond. And I'll explain this to you. I think Richmond, Collingwood, West Coast, Geelong, did I say GWS?
No.
Okay. Those 5 clubs are really, really advantaged by what's happened right now because they've all got established lists, right? They've all got depth and they've all got a system. They're not trying to relearn new systems, right? So they've been working on things for years. So those clubs, I can just see those 5 clubs dominating this year, in all honesty, because, like I said, they've got the depth, they've got the systems. And when I talk about, we've cut the coaches down, like the off-field stuff, but all clubs are going to keep their good people, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't see how that's going to be everyone's the same, right?
Yeah.
But the one thing that separates your Richmonds and your Collingwoods and West Coasts and all that type of stuff is the quality of the people and the knowledge of the people they have in those clubs. So if you're a weak club and you have to cut, then you're at a bigger disadvantage. Just like if you've got a weaker list with, your top 22 might be really good, but then you fall away. Well, what's going to happen to some of these clubs when they've had to cut the list down to whatever it is, was it 35? What are they cutting the list down to?
I don't think they've landed on the number yet, but there's anywhere between 35 and 40. So looking at about 4 to 7 players roughly.
Rightio. So for the people who don't realise this, who don't vote for Richmond listening, we just won the VFL Grand Final as well. We clearly have depth, right? So if we have to prune a couple back, it won't set us. Injuries won't set us as far back, and we proved that last year as a St Kilda, who are relying, or a Carlton, or a Sydney, or those type of guys. That's the difference, and that'll be the difference between those 5 clubs that I've mentioned and the rest of the pack by the end of the year.
Yeah, the list cuts is an interesting one, isn't it? Like, I mean, you mentioned a few players off the top, Tigercast, but I agree that I don't think we'll be as impacted as other teams will be. But I think the part of the changing of the game that we might be impacted on is the soft cap being reduced. I know, like you said, CB, we'll keep the good people there, but it just, the last few years we've obviously built up to where we are now by putting all the right people in place in all different departments across the board. So to have to slash that by quite a bit, I think it's being reduced by about $3 million. Is there the chance it will have a negative effect, or is it that ingrained in the players now that they can kind of carry the baton on for all the things they've learnt?
Well, do you reckon over time they'll introduce another tax, equalisation tax? So they'll say to the big clubs, you can go up to 30, but you're going to pay through the nose to do it if you want it.
Don't they have that now anyway?
Well, it's the game's changed, Mick. So they've just, we've cut back. They've had to cut $3 million at each club. So what I'm saying is we all reset back to a certain number, but then over time will they go, right, you can go back up to this if you can afford it, but you have to get it ticked off by the AFL and jump through the hoops, etc.
Well, the thing is, I think that $3 million. Yeah, look, it's a shame because we've built our system. We've, in a sense, if this happened to us when we were broke, Richmond, it'd be a great thing, I think, right? Because it brings the more powerful teams down a peg. And the weaker teams who aren't paying full salary cap, see, this is actually, thinking it through as I'm talking, it's going to make us stronger. Because let's say look at Carlton, right? They've got huge cap space, right? And they've been trying to make a play for someone. Now they've lost $3 million of it. And they've still got the quality of the list that they've got now.
And they've got to keep them.
They've got to keep what they've got now, even with all of its flaws. Jettison some of those as well, and then try to have money to buy an elite star who's like a Dustin Martin. Let's say Dustin Martin was on the market next year. His value won't go down. If anything, his value is going to go higher. Why? Because there's not going to be many of his playing type. Because as we reduce the playing pool, because this is unfortunately what that $3 million will do, your outright guns are going to be worth their weight in gold. You know what I mean? So...
Isn't the soft cap separate to the salary cap, though?
Yeah,
I thought
the soft cap separate.
Was just for staff.
Yeah, the soft cap's just for staff.
Oh, I thought it also factored in the cap for players as well.
No, I think they're two separate things.
Oh well, then it won't really hurt us. I don't think we're overtaxed anyway. Reduce it by $3 million. Most clubs have to reduce it by $3 million. So I don't see we're not paying. I don't think over the cap, the soft cap. So I think we'll be fine.
I think, honestly, the stronger will get stronger and the weaker will get weaker. That's what I think we'll see by the end of the year once injuries and everything kick in. That's what I think.
Oh, once injuries kick in, definitely. If they can't be replacing players with semi-good quality, they're going to get pumped.
Yep.
Did you guys see the game day guidelines that were leaked? Well, I say leaked in inverted quotation marks by the AFL to Channel 7, which, surprise, surprise, I wonder how that happened, for 2020. So here's some of the guidelines. I'm sure people have seen this. It's quite amusing. Players must sit 1.5 metres apart on the bench. No high fives or handshakes.
That's just stupid.
But you can go onto the ground, you can tackle, you can bump, you can take speckies. I get they want to be seen to be doing the socially responsible thing. I fully understand that, but it's not logical.
It's just retarded. Gil, I hope you're listening. You're just an idiot, son, because they tackle. They hot, sweaty bodies slam into each other.
The damage has been done by them. By the time they get to the bench, either something's happened or it hasn't. It's not going to,
I'm waiting for them to get fair dinkum with these rules and have them all play with masks on and rubber gloves, right, and give them full-body lycra suits. right? So they can still tackle, but none of the because you can understand when you play footy, you yell at your opposition, right? So your spittle is going all over.
Yeah.
But if they're testing, this is the thing, if they're going to test them twice a week, right, they're going to quarantine them in the sense that no other people can go into their clubs, no other people can use their equipment, so you got a semi, and the players are smart. When they go home, their wives and kids will be super diligent not to go out anywhere. I'm sure the clubs will already got put in place where groceries will be delivered to the players' houses so they don't have to get exposure by going out, all that other great stuff, right? So if they're getting that quarantine, then all these rules are redundant. All that rules that they're doing is just to say, look, we're with you, community.
Yep.
And what really shits me is, no, you're not with us because you're back at work and all this sort of stuff, and most of us aren't, right? So that's the truth. And don't worry about all these rules. Just be responsible, do the double testing, do the other things around it, but, have the amount of staff that are going to be the amount of staff allowed for next year. Start putting the shit in now, so, include the 3 million cap now, right? So clubs can start recruiting proper staff now to get them in and shoring up their things. Yeah, I think it's just a farce.
So I think they're allowed 6 staff are allowed in the coaching box now. So at a guess, I would say we would have maybe 9 to 12, including all the stats guys and all that kind of stuff. So it'd be interesting to see how that reduction plays a part, or if the other staff are allowed on the boundary line. I'm not too sure. And I suppose the other change is non-playing players, so whoever went selected, aren't allowed in the ground at all.
That's interesting. That's I think also, like for the blood rule, I think this is going to end careers because, as you know, Joel Selwood is a diving piece of shit, and he normally gets opened up in the first 5 minutes of every game by ducking his head. So I think Geelong going to need to lobby for the sub rule to come back in, mate, because he'll be off the ground and unable to play for the next 3.5 quarters.
He made some headlines in the last couple of weeks as well. Did you all hear about that?
That was garbage. Actually, I'll defend him on that one. That was just the woke brigade. Seriously, pull your heads in, you dickheads. Honestly.
All right. The 2020 Grand Final. This one, I just added this one in late because it just dawned on me today that, assuming we get through all the games, finals and all that kind of stuff, do you think as a nation or as a state we'll be at a point come October, November when a grand final could be played that we're going to be able to have a crowd? Or do you think there's going to be an empty stadium for a grand final? And that would just be an amazing thing to occur.
It'd be empty. I tell you something, right, because I know, and I hope anyone out in the public that's in the medical profession will know this. My wife gets daily mid-weekly reports on what the government targets are in relation to transmission. It's all about transmission. That's what it's about. It's getting the R0 down to 0.05, right? So what that basically means is when CB goes and gets his KFC, he's surrounded by 10 people, he won't affect any of them, right? If he's surrounded by 11 or 12 people, he might affect one. So basically what it means is that one person, if we get it down to 0.05, it means the infection hasn't got the rate of transmission to actually become an epidemic or a pandemic. It means it will eventually end up dying off, right? Because it can't jump from target to target. At the moment, Vic's not even close to it. Yes, we're doing really well and all this sort of stuff, but the transmission rate is still over 0.5. Once it comes down that level, then the transmission will die. But it hasn't, and it's been proof on point. I sort of rang SEN, I think about 2.5 weeks ago, and they were talking about how great Vic's going because all of our cases were going away. And people were thinking, because I get these things, I said, no, we're still not this level. And it just took one person to go into one busy McDonald's, and next thing you know, you got 24 people infected within a couple of days. They've just found out. Now, one truckie's done it, and he's now closed down 3 or 4 McDonald's in the northern suburbs, right? So till they get a vaccine or till they get a treatment for it, or till, if the government was really strong, keep this social distancing, keep these lockdown till probably September. I know people don't want to hear it. Keep it that long, and that should kill it. But till then, there's no way we're going to get back to 25 plus people. It's no way. It's not going to happen.
So the second part of that question, because my assumption was the same line as what you just said there. So based on that, if there's no crowd involved, no corporates, no nothing, Does this give any scope at all, do you think, to change the venue? Say if there was a Sydney versus GWS Grand Final, could there be an argument to say, well, why don't we just have it in Sydney because no one's going to be missing out on tickets anyway?
It's contracted.
So you reckon
contracted. The MCG can still legally say, no, you've got to play at MCG. You signed a contract that's out.
Till 2052, isn't it?
You just got to keep in mind it's still going to be televised, right? So whereas people the MCG will get value from people knowing, let's say the Americans are watching it, whoever, and saying it's televised from the MCG. You know what I mean?
What it will be, this will be their chance to do a night grand final. That's what this year will be.
But I reckon nighttime will exemplify, and we'll know this now watching it, really amplify that there's no crowds at night. I reckon that will really amplify the effect of it because, the darkened sky sort of creates a dome over the ground.
Yeah, but if they go to nights, Mick, it opens up the international audience even more.
Yeah, but do we want really? I suppose the Americans loved it when we had the Carlton Richmond game, and they had no footy. Oh, can we talk about the States for a second? Look, I don't care if you're a Trump supporter. If you do, fucking, good luck to you. But to open up like they've done, and they're tracking, I think, at 2,500 deaths per day, right?
That's scary.
And the thing is that this is the other thing. And to anyone out here that's listening to this, please heed my words, right? Because it's not me being. I'm going to put my serious hat on at the moment. For those that really believe this is nothing but the flu, and for those that really think that, no, I'll be fine, mate, don't stress. I believe cut the bullshit and just look at the facts, right? If you're one of those people that don't believe in what the doctors are telling you, that's cool. Fully respected. All I need you to do is Google the global death rate. That's all I need you to Google, right? There's a stat, and it's every country uses it. Modern country, I should say, that anyone dies for any reason, right? So it could be for disease, could be, smash their car, drugs, whatever, right? So it's a mortality rate. Each country has it, right? And everyone uses it. And then just compare April, May of this year, and compare that to any other 2 months in any other year for the last 20 years. And then you're going to see the difference, the spike. Right, it's like I think the general average is 68% increased death if it's a global one. Some countries as high as 98% increase. So if you're telling me like a country like America who has a 98% increase in just those 2 months, even though they're reporting, which is grossly under what they've got, but their actual death rate. See, this is the thing: when you die, as soon as the PMT is finished with you, or the EMT is what they call them in America, the doctor goes time of death. As soon as he does that, they don't do the death certificate, but they do the report for it, and that's what that data's put on. So it's updated all the time. That KPI is used on. So global death rate. Go look at it. You'll see what the spike is. Some countries it's bloody frightening. Some countries are not too bad. Even us, like us, our death rate was up by 28% because we don't have people with guns rocking around, but we've had a few deaths, which is more than what we normally would get. But yeah, it is scary, and the only thing that you can say that's caused that huge spike is Corona. So don't underestimate it. Fully respect it. Please wear gloves and please wear masks. I know. And look, if you guys knew me in a personal note, I never used to go to doctors. I don't. But this shit, from what I've learnt and researched on, please wear gloves. Please wear a mask. Please be safe. Because if you're not going to do it for yourself, and if you've got kids, think of your kids. And yes, they can get affected. Think of your wife, think of your grandma, think of your mother-in-law, your father-in-law, whoever else. Do it for them, not for yourself. Do it for them. Because I went out shopping today with the wife, and I saw people, no mask on, no gloves on, in groups of 10, 15, laughing, talking. And what people don't realise, you don't have to cough to have the spittle. And the spittle actually stays in the air. It doesn't just go up like an arrow and fall to the ground. It actually stays in the air. That's why you got to wear a mask on. So you might be 1.5 metres from a bloke who coughs that's got no masks. If you've got no mask, you're walking right into it. So just be smart.
Yeah,
that's all I wanted to say. So I'll get off my soapbox.
No, this is an interesting version of Tiger71 we've had tonight, I might just add.
Yeah,
the serious version, it's good.
People are going to say, look, I'm alarmist and all this sort of shit. Look, I'm not. I'm just saying, why risk it?
No, exactly right. You've got to be safe.
I'll do it, Donald Trump. You got nothing to lose. Just do it. Nothing to lose. What a fucking idiot that guy is. But seriously, just do it, till they get a vaccine. Just till they get a vaccine.
Safe.
Stay safe. For the love of God, stay safe.
All right, now that's a very good message and one that we should all be adhering to. We'll finish this up with a segment that I'm very much looking forward to. Captain Blood17's new segment called Bloodbath. I kind of ruined it on Twitter inadvertently, but I think you're still going to be able to get the point across pretty strongly, I believe. So CB17, the floor is yours.
Right out. So by now, most people would have heard of the most pathetic line of reasoning since Chris Scott and Geelong souped it up over a home final. I'm talking about Vic bias. Hashtag Vic bias. When you have players in the team you support, like Port Adelaide, complaining about it, guess what, Port fans? Your season's already over. Your team is mentally soft. Since 2000, actually, I'll go back. There was another stat that when I was sparring with a knob last night. I want people to understand this, right, when they talk about Vic bias. From 1997 to 2006, interstate clubs won 8 out of 10 flags. 8 out of 10. And then if you take another snapshot, if you look at from 2000 to 2019, Victorian clubs are ahead by 1 flag, and that was us winning last year. And even then, GWS in the grand final. If GWS had got up, interstate teams would actually have won more grand finals than Victorian clubs since 2000 as well. So don't believe the bullshit of what is getting peddled out there by woke commentators, what have you. It's an absolute furphy, right? So since then, they've won 9 flags, you know. And guess what? From 2001 to 2006, they won 6 straight. Brisbane won 3, Swans, West Coast and Port. 4 different teams won 6 flags straight from 2001 to 2006. Right? They were really great teams to be admired. Vic bias didn't exist then, did it? Right? But we know the answer to this, right? We know it's a crock. So here's my take. South Australian clubs and supporters, Western Australian clubs and supporters, it's a national comp. If you don't like it, please go away and support some backwater shithole club like Sturt, South Fremantle, whatever. Sport isn't about participation and passing the cup around. Oh, Richmond had 7 straight at the G. Did they? Did they, Volcano? Well, by your logic, our draw must have been very unfair in the first 13 rounds. And where does Collingwood, Carlton, Essendon, Melbourne, Hawthorn, where do they play their home games against us if they can't play at the MCG? It's not a bias. It's just that you guys, unfortunately, are bitter losers. That's all. And you're pathetic. If you want success, demand better from your club. Don't blame the winners. Look at yourselves. That's my bloodbath.
Oh, he's even got a sign-off. Very good, CB. Very good.
I just didn't want an awkward silence.
Special shout-out to Mark McGowan, the WA Premier. You're a dickhead, mate.
Yeah, he's a dickhead.
Just like we touched on earlier, trying to argue that bringing over 10 teams and relocating them instead of 2 is just batshit crazy. But the Port boys, where are we? Just consecutive days, and then you've got their social media team tweeting images of the ladder every week because they're first, and yeah, they're mentally shot, that club. Their players coming out bitching and moaning, it's just poor form.
Yeah, and keep in mind, right, if they're going to complain about this, and thank God for Eddie Maguire, because Eddie Maguire champions the club, the Victorian clubs, really, really well. I'll give Eddie respect for that, right? He took on the Swans and all that stuff. If these interstate clubs, they want to bitch and moan about an unfair national comp, well, that's okay. We'll take away your academies, all the salary, all the extra help you guys get. We'll take it all away. And then we'll see what survival of the fittest really looks like, right? So be careful what you wish for, because if it's going to happen, then we really do remove everything, warts and all. And I don't think some clubs would be real comfortable with that.
Yeah, they're just crybabies. They're just crybabies. That's all it is, mate. They won't change. Like, you know, credit to West Coast, or it's probably more their coach. Said, you know, don't make excuses. It is what it is. He recognises he has a benefit too, because when teams have to go WA, they find it a lot harder to win. You should be able to build your list to win anywhere at any time. So they could just have to deal with it.
Yeah, and Hardwick said the same thing. He's anywhere, anytime. We're happy to go play and do whatever. So I think for the vast majority of the coaches, they have the same mentality in the players. But yeah, there's just that select handful that get that little bit of airtime and they make themselves look stupid.
And you talk about this. Did you see the thing that broke late today? Port Adelaide don't want to share the same facilities as Adelaide.
Yeah, Coffee the dickhead. What a clown.
They're clowns. They're just fucking, both, they're all, so that's why for me, when I read shit like that, I just laugh because I know those clubs will never have success till
If
they
you're
have a
the
culture
AFL
change.
and you get an email from Koshi saying, look, thanks for putting us up in this beautiful golf course, but we don't want to stay in the same place as Adelaide, I reckon you'd send him one back saying, go jump, mate.
That's it. All odds, okay, is that how you want? Put him in some fucking divey, skeefy place that they have to go into. You know what I mean?
A backpackers where everyone's coughing.
Oh, like a hostel and shit. Put him in that. It's all right, Kosh, you enjoy it. They're dicks.
What a knobhead.
It just, I don't know if it's a football club or a clown college, mate, honestly.
Yeah.
Before we finish, the other thing I want to highlight, I was watching a bit of Dimmer's press conference from today, and a reporter asked a really good question with the small groups training. If we were sort of splitting up our players with forwards, mixing in with mids, mixing in with backs, so we don't keep all of one line training in a group in case one goes down. And Hardwick just backed the club straight out and goes, no, the backs are training with the backs, the forwards are training with the forwards, mids are training with the mids. We back our program, we trust our players to do the right thing, and we'll be fine. So it's still really great to see how solid our club is in this kind of crisis as well.
Yeah, do we give a tip for Collingwood? It's going to be Collingwood Richmond.
I'm not sure it's locked in yet. They haven't released.
I reckon
it
is, mate. I reckon it is.
Don't do a Tom Brown on us and go the early crow and fuck it up.
They'll need it.
I've got a question for you guys, and I'll give you my answer first up. Like the speculation about it being Richmond and Collingwood as the restart game. If I'm honest with you, I really, really don't want us to be the opening game.
I don't either.
Because I'm sick and tired of watching us be the fucking guinea pigs every time something starts up, and then they get their shit together by the end of the round.
Yeah.
I'm happy for a couple of other teams to get torched for the first 2 or 3 games until the umpires start getting their mojo back. Because it kills me.
But the reality is you've got Collingwood Richmond, on the TV guide, on the commercials. People will tune into it, yeah? Seriously, do you reckon they could tune into Carlton and Fremantle or Carlton and Essendon or Essendon and fucking Adelaide? They don't have the same sort of power and pull, you know what I mean? Carlton and Richmond will automatically get all the people watching it again, and that's why they do it. And look, at the end of the day, yes, their decision-making is going to be horrid, but I go back to where we got shafted by Carlton in the first game of the year when they got 7 goals from inside 50s. It can never get worse than that. And we still
give it time, Mick.
We still won by 50 points. And look, and Collingwood's not, they're in a bit of problem themselves. I think they're not much chop. We should smash them by around about 48 points, like we did the last time we played them. You know what I mean? They were never in it. They got junk time goals the last time we played. They only won round 2 because Jack hurt himself, and we had lost Rance the week before and we were all at sea. But once you had our list together, they were all cocky, these little toothless, diabetes-stricken supporters. But who's scratching their fucking desk? Like, seriously, who's been doing it? Someone's got the rubber one out, like playing with a rattle. Oh, jeepers. Is that you, Mick?
CB, not me. I'm on a couch.
Yeah, sure, mate. Have you got pants on me?
A bit of OCD just kicked in. There was something on my bench that I just had to rub off.
Oh, someone's got some bangles and shit. I'm trying to be polite, not throw you under the bus, but I just had enough. No. It's, who's doing that sound?
That's probably CB as well.
Yeah, CB, mate.
There we go.
Squeaky chair, rubbing one out. Mate, have respect for our listeners. Dude.
Jolsey, if you're listening to me, darling, no socks, matching underwear. I kept my promise.
Oh, should we listening tomorrow? No doubt.
All right, boys.
All right, fellas. Thanks so much for the catch-up. Very well worth the wait. And hopefully we'll do another one once we know our official fixture and who we're playing and when it is and all that kind of stuff. We'll get stuck back into it. And
that'll be a lot better. And on the flip side, I reckon the trading is going to get really pretty aggressive too, because if with the money being cut back, they're going to be very smart on decisions. There might be talent that might be released to allow clubs to change personnel. So you might have a fairly good player that they need to shunt off so they can get maximum value for him, so they can inject that money into a different type of player. So I'll see what I can dig around. I'll make a few calls next week and the week after till we start.
All right, sounds good. Thanks again for your time tonight, guys. And stay safe, everyone. And until next time, go Tigers.
Hashtag Vic Bias.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Richmond BigFooty Tigercast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and YouTube so you can follow all the roast and toast, the reviews and previews, and all topics Richmond. Also keep an ear out for our special episodes of interviews with past players. Go Tigers.